Uganda just passed a law that made homosexuality illegal, and the many corrupt Western leaders and their allies are panicking.
In our country, we will have our morals. We will protect our children. And we are making this law. We are making this law for ourselves. We are making this law for our children. We are making this law for the children of our children. This country will stand firm. And once it passed, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, we are going to reinforce the law enforcement officers to make sure that homosexuals have no space in Uganda.
Same-sex relations are already illegal in Uganda and over 30 other African countries. The new law would introduce steep sentences, life in prison for same-sex relations, and the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality, which according to the bill involves gay sex with people under 18 or when the perpetrator is HIV positive, among other categories.
As you might have expected, the Western countries, led by America, are swiftly condemning this bill and are already dishing out the threats should Uganda sign the bill into law.
The bill is one of the most extreme anti-LGBTQI+ laws in the world. If the AHA is signed into law and enacted, it would impinge upon universal human rights, jeopardize progress in the fight against HIV/AIDS, deter tourism, and invest in Uganda and damage Uganda's international reputation.
Parliament passing it, it still has some process to go here. We're certainly watching this real closely, and we would have to take a look at whether or not there might be repercussions that we would have to take, perhaps in an economic way, should this law actually get passed and enacted. That would be really unfortunate because so much of the economic assistance that we provide Uganda is health assistance, and largely through PEPFAR. You can see a world in which a law like this, should it be enacted, would not only, as Karine rightly said, just be devastating to a whole community of people inside Uganda, but if it were to have any kind of an effect on our economic assistance, that would only make that worse. So we'll have to take a look.
I want to begin by taking a moment to condemn in the absolute strongest terms the despicable law put forward by the Ugandan government discriminating against the 2S LGBTQI+ community. This is something that Canada totally and completely stands against. We will be looking at how we can support the community in Uganda as we continue to stand for 2S LGBTQI+ rights in Canada and around the world. And we call upon all leaders, including all leaders around the world, but particularly Commonwealth leaders, to come out and clearly condemn this despicable piece of legislation.
This is how far America and other Western countries can go to bully a sovereign country into yielding to their demonic agenda.
Nobody concentrates so much on homosexuals. Nobody is hunting them. But because they come and want to force us to say homosexuality, oh yeah, that's how you get now a backlash. They are the ones who are provoking all this. Our attitude on homosexuality is that these are deviants. They are deviants from the normal. There is the normal, there is the deviation from the normal. But you don't kill. The deviation from normal is also part of nature. You can get somebody born with 6 fingers instead of 5. You can't kill him. But then you don't go around and say, oh, this one, the deviation is the normal. It is the provocation by the Western countries.
When a nation like the U.S. threatens to impose economic sanctions on another nation because of LGBTQ rights, it goes to show how Satan is using these ungodly elected officials, government appointees, and employees to intimidate and punish a country for making a law they believe is in the interest of their citizens.
Let's talk more about that, Roland. What are the dangers and ramifications of passing this bill, or rather criminalizing LGBTQ relationships, both for the community and also for our country?
One, as I mentioned, discrimination is that once we criminalize LGBTI activities, one, you find that this community will not be free to go to look for services because already you have already said that we don't identify you. And this includes health services. It includes services such as LGBTI community going to hospitals for treatment because one, if the treatment is related to, for instance, issues that affect their sexual health, then you find that these persons may face some kind of discrimination.
Every person without God is in a dire mental condition. Doesn't mean their rational faculties are not functioning. But it does mean that they are in the kingdom of darkness, right? It does mean that they are under the power of the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now works in the children of disobedience. So we have to understand that anyone who is not a believer is operating in some sense with a demonic influence. It may be external, coming at them through the culture, but there's something in them, in their corruption, in their fallenness, in their natural perversion that deceives them. The heart is desperately wicked, deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
We want to make two crucial points here. First, we do not support taking someone's life because of gender identity. However, Uganda allotted the penalty as a deterrent to homosexuals who have sex with minors or a gay with HIV/AIDS who have intercourse with another person. In the United States, if an adult engages in sexual activity with a minor or someone under the age of consent, they commit a felony, even if the minor indicated they agreed to have sex. Here are some examples of penalties for sleeping with a minor in the United States. The consequences of a conviction for a sex crime involving a minor include up to a lifetime prison sentence, years on probation once the prison term is finished, fines of tens of thousands of dollars, required registration as a sex offender, often for the rest of your life, civil penalties in some states. Isn't it hypocritical for the United States to condemn Uganda? At the core of it, it's really not about fighting for human rights. Instead, it's about exporting a sinful lifestyle to other countries with more pertinent issues to address. Secondly, the West should learn to respect other countries' sovereignty and their ability to make certain laws to protect their nations.
What is your message to Western human rights groups, to President Obama, to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people?
Respect African societies and their values. If you don't agree, you just keep quiet. Let's manage our society the way we see. If we are wrong, we shall find out by ourselves. Just the way we don't interfere with yours.
And here's the point we're trying to make. In the United States and many other European countries, polygamy or bigamy is a felony, meaning that you could be fined and even jailed for marrying someone else while still married. On the contrary, some African countries do not criminalize polygamy. The question then is, why are the United States and the West attacking a sovereign nation for making a law to ban homosexuality? This is hypocrisy and intimidation in their purest form.
If you come to Germany, for instance, which is one of the most liberal countries in the world, polygamy is illegal in Germany. Not only is it illegal, you could end up with a fine and a jail term of up to 3 years. One would think and expect that a country as liberal as Germany or any other country in Western Europe in promoting human rights would also have, people practice whatever they want to practice. But the reality is that every country is entitled to enact legislation or laws that promotes moral values of that particular country.
Please join us in our fight for the truth. Please share our videos, subscribe, like, and comment. We appreciate your help. Unfortunately, the issue of homosexuality is gradually becoming a global issue. Some even go as far as calling it a human rights issue, while others condescend so low as to equate rights with the Black civil rights movement in America.
So are there differences between ethnicity and so-called sexual orientation? Absolutely there are. Ethnicity is innate and unchangeable. So-called sexual orientation is not innate, and it is changeable. We know this. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 is 2,000-year-old evidence that people stop being gay. So we know that it's neither innate nor is it unchangeable. So there are huge differences between the two. However, if all you're doing is using the language of the culture and the idea of people as constituencies, then you end up right where we are, and it's hard to stop that train. I think there are some things that we accepted philosophically in the civil rights movement that were not based in biblical truth. And those things are being applied in the gay rights movement the exact same way. And now we're calling them out. For example, the idea of constituentizing people, to create a word, seeing people as constituencies and seeing rights as rights for constituencies of people. And this continued division of ourselves based on our constituencies and our so-called communities, this community, that community, the other community, and rights being sort of divvied up by community. That's problematic. I think what we're seeing now is the homosexual community latching on to some of those very concepts. These concepts, by the way, which are rooted and grounded in cultural Marxism. This was the goal of Gramscian Marxism. Divide people up into constituencies. And then the way you gain power is by making promises to and representing particular constituencies. Now, you never give them what you promise, but by creating this idea of constituencies and being the one who is the representative of the constituencies, you gain power and you keep your power to the degree that things don't get better for your constituency. So now what happens is, even when gains are made, you have to downplay those and go looking for other things that are problems, because again, that's the way you keep your power. The homosexual community has latched onto that, has identified themselves as a constituency who is deserving of, our attention and our pity. They did this intentionally using the AIDS crisis, and the direct result is they now have achieved a one-to-one correlation that we're finding it very hard to move away from.
Moreover, just as the Western countries are pushing other countries to embrace homosexuality, the Pope seems to be pushing for it too. Not that we're surprised.
Todos hijos de Dios. Y Dios nos quiere como estamos y con la fuerza que luchamos cada uno por nuestra dignidad. Ser homosexual no es un delito, no es un delito. Sí, pero es pecado. Bueno, primero, distingamos pecado por delito. Pero también es pecado la falta de caridad con el prójimo. ¿Y vos cómo andás? La condena de la homosexualidad viene de lejos. Hoy día, por ejemplo, creo que los países que tienen condena legal son más de 50. No la nombran directamente, pero dicen aquellos que tienen actitudes antinaturales, o sea, buscan decirlo de manera escondida. Creo que es injusto.
May the Lord Jesus help us to remain faithful despite the glorification of sin all around us. Amen.